My hands were still shaking as I watched my daughter Clara slam the door in my face. "You're too old to live here," she had screamed, throwing my belongings onto the front lawn like trash. The neighbors on Magnolia Street were peeking through their curtains, witnessing my humiliation. At 72 years old, I stood there in my house slippers, watching my own child lock me out of the home I'd paid for with 30 years of double shifts at the hospital. But here's the part that still makes me smile through the tears. The very next morning, while I was staying at my church friend Yolanda's house, there was a knock at her door. When I opened it, there stood my son-in-law, Jerome, 2 suitcases in hand and fury in his eyes. "Miss Loretta," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't stay married to someone who could treat their own mother like that. If you'll have me, I'd like to help you get back on your feet." What Clara did was unforgivable. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand how a daughter I raised with love and sacrifice could turn into someone I didn't recognize. 6 months ago, I was living peacefully in my 4-bedroom house in Atlanta's West End. I'd bought it back in 1985 when the neighborhood was different, held onto it through the recession, and watched it become valuable as the area gentrified. My late husband Earl and I had raised Clara and her brother Terrence in that house. Every wall held memories. Pencil marks showing how tall the kids grew. The kitchen where I taught Clara to make her grandmother's sweet potato pie. The backyard where Earl taught Terrence to throw a football. After Earl passed 5 years ago, the house felt too big. But it was home. Clara had been living in a cramped apartment with Jerome and my grandbabies, 8-year-old Destiny and 6-year-old Jalen. When their landlord raised the rent for the 3rd time, I made what I thought was a loving offer. "Come stay with me," I told Clara over Sunday dinner at my dining room table. "This house is too big for just me, and the kids need a yard to play in." Clara's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She threw her arms around me. "Mama, you sure? We don't want to impose." "Impose? Girl, you're my family. Besides, it'll be nice having the grandbabies around." Jerome had seemed hesitant at first. He was a good man, worked construction, always respectful, helped with the bills. "Miss Loretta, we appreciate this, but we're going to contribute. I don't want you thinking we're taking advantage." "I know you won't," I assured him, patting his hand. The first few months were wonderful. The house came alive again with children's laughter. Destiny would sit with me while I crocheted, learning the stitches I'd learned from my own grandmother. Jalen would beg for stories about his grandpa Earl. I cooked big Sunday dinners like the old days: fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread. My church friends commented on how happy I looked. "Loretta, you're glowing," Sister Marjorie said after service one Sunday. "Having those babies around is good for you." But slowly, things began to change. Clara started making comments about my decorating. "Mama, this furniture is so old-fashioned. Nobody has plastic on their couches anymore." Then came complaints about my cooking. "All this fried food isn't healthy for the kids." I bit my tongue. Maybe she was right. Times change. I removed the plastic covers and started baking the chicken instead of frying it. But the comments didn't stop. Clara began treating me like I was a guest in my own home. She rearranged my kitchen, claiming she couldn't find anything. She told the kids they didn't have to listen to Grandma if Mommy said different. She started having her book club friends over without asking, and they'd take over my living room, laughing at what they called my old church lady decorations. Jerome tried to intervene. "Clara, don't talk to your mother like that," he'd say when she got disrespectful. "Mind your business, Jerome," she'd snap back. "This is between me and my mama." I noticed Jerome spending more time in the garage, working on projects, avoiding the tension. The kids started acting confused, not knowing whose rules to follow. My peaceful home had become a battlefield. The breaking point came gradually. Clara started asking about my finances. "Mama, you're getting old. Maybe I should help manage your money." I've been managing my money just fine for longer than you've been alive, I told her firmly. But what if something happens to you? I should at least be on your bank accounts. When I refused, her attitude got worse. She started talking about putting me in a nice retirement community so I could be around people my age. This house is too much for you to maintain, she'd say, even though I'd been maintaining it just fine. I overheard her on the phone with someone one evening. I was coming up from the basement where I'd been sorting through Earl's old tools to give to Jerome when I heard her voice from the kitchen. The house has to be worth at least $400,000 now, she was saying. Once we get her to sign it over, we can sell it and get something newer in the suburbs. My heart shattered. My own daughter was planning to take my house. I confronted her that night after the kids were asleep. Clara, I heard what you said on the phone. Her face went through several expressions before settling on defiance. So, I'm thinking about your future, Mama. You can't live here forever. This is my home. I'm not signing anything over to anybody. We'll see about that, she said coldly, and walked away. The next few weeks were tense. Clara barely spoke to me except to criticize. She started telling the kids that Grandma was getting too old to take care of herself. She'd make comments in front of her friends about how I was becoming a burden. Jerome pulled me aside one evening while Clara was at her book club. Miss Loretta, I'm sorry about how she's acting. It's not right. I've tried talking to her, but she won't listen. It's not your fault, baby, I told him, seeing the pain in his eyes. Just protect those babies. Last Tuesday was when everything exploded. I'd gone to my doctor for my regular checkup and got a clean bill of health. When I came home, happy to share the good news, I found Clara in my bedroom, going through my papers. What are you doing? I demanded. Looking for your will, she said without shame. I need to know what provisions you've made. Get out of my room. How dare you go through my private things? Your room? Clara laughed, but it was ugly. Mama, let's be real. You're 72 years old. You can barely climb these stairs. You forget things. It's time to face reality. The only reality is that you're in my house, going through my things without permission. Your house? Her voice got louder. I'm the one who's been taking care of you. I'm the one making sure you take your medicines, making sure you eat, dealing with your old lady problems. Nobody asked you to do any of that. I was fine before you moved in. That's when she said the words that changed everything. You know what, Mama? You're too old to live here. This house is wasted on you. You need to be in a home where people can take care of you properly. This is my home. Not anymore, she said coldly. I'm done pretending. Either you sign this house over to me and go to a retirement place willingly, or I'll have you declared incompetent. I've already talked to a lawyer. I felt like I'd been slapped. You'd do that to your own mother? It's for your own good. You're not capable of making decisions anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to my house breathe. Every creak and settle I knew by heart. I thought about Earl, how hard we'd worked for this place. I thought about all the memories within these walls. And I thought about my daughter, wondering where I'd gone wrong. The next morning, Wednesday, Clara escalated everything. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she came downstairs with Jerome and the kids. Mama, we need to talk, she announced. As a family. Jerome looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. The kids seemed confused. I've made a decision, Clara continued. It's time for you to move out. Today. Excuse me? You heard me. I've found a nice assisted living facility on the south side. They have an opening. You can take your clothes and personal items, but the furniture stays. It came with the house. Clara, you've lost your mind. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are. She pulled out her phone. I have a video of you talking to yourself in the garden yesterday. Clear sign of dementia. My lawyer says it's enough to start proceedings. I had been singing hymns while watering my tomatoes. That's not talking to myself, that's singing. The court won't see it that way. She turned to the kids. Say goodbye to Grandma. She's going to a special place for old people who need help. Destiny started crying. I don't want Grandma to go. Hush, Clara snapped. Grandma's sick. She needs professional help. Jerome finally spoke up. Clara, this is wrong. Miss Loretta isn't sick. You can't do this. Shut up, Jerome. You always take her side. If you don't like it, you can leave too. That's when I stood up, my coffee mug trembling in my hand. You want me out? Fine. But I want you to look your children in the eye and tell them you're throwing their grandmother out of her own house. Clara didn't even hesitate. She looked at Destiny and Jalen and said, Grandma is too old to live here anymore. It's not safe for her or for us. The lies fell from her lips so easily. Jalen, my sweet grandbaby, ran to hug my legs. Grandma's not old. She plays with us. Go to your room, Clara ordered. Both of you, now. As the children ran upstairs crying, Clara turned back to me. You have 1 hour to pack. If you're not gone, I'll call the police and tell them you're trespassing. Trespassing? In my own house? I have a lease agreement you signed when we moved in, giving me tenant rights. My lawyer says that's enough to evict you if you're creating a hostile environment for my children. I had signed something, thinking it was just a formality to help them with the kids' school registration. I never imagined my own daughter would use it against me, Jerome was shaking his head. Clara, please. Think about what you're doing. I am thinking. I'm thinking about our future. This house is our ticket to a better life. I looked at my daughter, the baby I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through fevers, cheered at graduations, held when her heart was broken. I didn't recognize the cold woman standing before me. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go. I went upstairs and packed what I could carry. My hands shook as I folded my clothes, gathered my medicines, my photo albums, Earl's watch, my mother's Bible. I could hear Clara downstairs already on the phone with someone, laughing about her plans for renovation. As I came down with my suitcases, Jerome tried to help me, but Clara stopped him. Don't you dare help her. She made her choice. I walked out of my home, with my head held high, even as neighbors stared. Mrs. Washington from next door came out. Loretta, honey, what's happening? Ask my daughter, I said, my voice steady despite the tears. Clara stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me struggle with my bags. And don't think about coming back. I'm changing the locks today. Those were the last words my daughter said to me before slamming the door. The sound echoed through the neighborhood like thunder. As I stood there on the sidewalk, 62 years of life reduced to 2 suitcases, I heard shouting from inside the house. It was Jerome's voice, louder than I'd ever heard it. How could you do that to your own mother? I couldn't hear Clara's response, but I heard a door slam, then another. More shouting. Then suddenly the front door flew open again. But it wasn't Clara standing there. It was Jerome, and he had his own suitcases. Behind him, I could see Clara's shocked face as he walked past her like she wasn't even there. Jerome, where do you think you're going? Clara shrieked. He turned back to her, his usually calm demeanor replaced by righteous anger. I'm going with your mother. The woman who welcomed us into her home when we had nowhere else to go. The woman who loved our children unconditionally. The woman you just threw out like garbage. You can't be serious. She's my mother, not yours. And that makes what you did worse, not better. Jerome walked straight to me and gently took one of my suitcases. Miss Loretta, you're not going anywhere alone. I've got you. Clara came running out of the house, her face twisted with rage. Jerome, if you leave with her, don't bother coming back. I mean it. He paused and looked at her with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Disgust. Clara, I've watched you disrespect this woman for months. I've tried to talk to you, tried to make you see reason. But what you did today, that's not the woman I married. The Clara I fell in love with would never throw her mother out of her own house. It's not her house anymore. It's ours. No, Clara. It's hers. Her name is on the deed. Her sweat and tears paid for it. And you know what? I'm done being part of your scheme. That's when Clara made a mistake. She grabbed Jerome's arm and dug her nails in. You're not going anywhere with that old woman. Mrs. Washington and several other neighbors had come out by now. And everyone saw Jerome pull his arm away. Don't put your hands on me, Clara. And don't you ever call your mother that old woman again. Clara's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. You'll regret this. Both of you. I'll take everything. The house, the kids, everything. Jerome pulled out his phone. Actually, I've been recording your behavior for the past month. Every threat against your mother, every scheme you discussed with your friends, even that call where you were planning to have her declared incompetent. My lawyer says it's more than enough for a custody hearing. The color drained from Clara's face. You've been recording me? I had to protect the kids from what you're becoming. You think Destiny and Jalen need to grow up watching their mother con their grandmother out of her home? By now, half the neighborhood was watching. Mr. Franklin from across the street shook his head. Old Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down was recording everything on her phone. The mail carrier had stopped his truck to stare. Clara looked around at all the witnesses, then back at Jerome. You're making a mistake. She's got you fooled just like she had my daddy fooled, acting all innocent and helpless. Your mother is the strongest woman I know, Jerome said firmly. She doesn't need to act like anything. Come on, Miss Loretta. My cousin has an Airbnb we can stay at until we figure things out. As we walked to Jerome's truck, Clara kept screaming behind us. The kids are mine! You hear me? You'll never see them again. And Mama, you're dead to me. Dead! Those words hit me like physical blows, but Jerome steadied me. Don't listen to her. Miss Loretta, she's just showing her true colors. As we drove away, I saw Clara in the rearview mirror, standing in the middle of the street, still yelling. Several neighbors were approaching her, and from their expressions, they weren't coming to offer comfort. Jerome's cousin Marcus owned a small Airbnb in East Point. It was a cozy 2-bedroom house with a little garden out back. When we arrived, Jerome insisted I take the main bedroom. I can't put you out like this, I protested. You should go back to your children. Miss Loretta, those kids need to see that actions have consequences. Their mother needs to understand she can't treat people this way. Besides, he pulled out his phone and showed me a text from Mrs. Washington. The neighbors are keeping an eye on things. That first night was hard. I sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, holding Earl's picture, wondering how my life had come to this. 72 years old and essentially homeless, betrayed by my own child. Jerome knocked softly. Miss Loretta, I made some tea. We sat at the small kitchen table, and for the first time, Jerome opened up about what had been happening behind my back. She's been planning this for months, he said, stirring honey into his tea. At first I thought she was just stressed about money, but then she started researching your house value, looking up elder law attorneys, talking about power of attorney. Why didn't you tell me? I kept hoping she'd come to her senses. I tried to redirect her, remind her of everything you've done for us. But she got obsessed with the idea that the house was her inheritance and she shouldn't have to wait for it. Earl and I worked so hard for that house, I whispered. I know, and Clara knows too. That's what makes this so much worse. Jerome rubbed his face tiredly. I can't have my kids growing up thinking this is okay. What kind of man would I be if I stood by and let her do this to you? The next morning, Thursday, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. It was Yolanda from church. Loretta girl, is it true? Did Clara really put you out? Word travels fast in our community. By 7, I'd heard from 5 more church members, all offering help. Sister Marjorie wanted to organize a prayer circle. Deacon Harris offered to talk to his nephew, who was a lawyer. But the most interesting call came from my nephew Anthony, Terrence's son. Auntie Lo, I just saw a video online. Someone posted Clara putting you out and it's going viral. The comments are, well, let's just say Clara might want to stay off social media for a while. Viral? What does that mean? It means thousands of people are seeing what she did to you. And Auntie, they're not happy about it. Jerome had gone to work, but he'd left me his laptop to check my bank accounts and make sure Clara hadn't tried to access them. When I opened Facebook, I was shocked. The video Mrs. Chen had taken had over 50,000 views. The comments section was full of people expressing outrage, sharing their own stories of elder abuse, and calling for justice. But what really caught my attention was a comment from someone named Regina Matthews. "This is my cousin Clara. I'm so ashamed." Her grandmother would be rolling in her grave. "Clara, if you're reading this, you better make this right." My phone rang. It was my son Terrence calling from Houston. "Mama, I just saw the video. I'm booking a flight right now." "Baby, you don't need to." "Yes, I do. Clara's lost her damn mind, and I've got some things to tell you about what she's been saying behind your back." While I waited for Terrence, I got a call from an unexpected source. My attorney, Mr. Goldstein, who'd helped Earl and me with our will years ago. "Loretta, I heard what happened. Can you come to my office this afternoon? There are some things about your house deed that Clara obviously doesn't know." Jerome drove me to the appointment. Mr. Goldstein, now in his 80s but sharp as ever, pulled out a thick folder. "Earl was a smart man," he said, adjusting his glasses. "He was worried something like this might happen after he passed, so we set up some protections." "What kind of protections?" "First, the house is in an irrevocable trust. You're the sole beneficiary during your lifetime. It can't be transferred without multiple witnesses and a competency evaluation by 3 independent doctors. So Clara can't do anything. Furthermore, that lease agreement she had you sign, I reviewed it. It's worthless. You can't be a tenant in your own home. She, however, established herself as a tenant, which means you can legally evict her with 30 days' notice." Jerome leaned forward. "So Clara played herself?" "Essentially, yes. And there's more. Earl set aside a separate account for legal expenses, specifically to protect you from financial elder abuse. There's $50,000 in it." I started crying. Even from beyond the grave, my Earl was protecting me. "Now," Mr. Goldstein continued, "what would you like to do?" I thought about my grandchildren, about the home Earl and I had built, about the daughter I no longer recognized. "I want my house back, and I want my grandbabies protected from whatever Clara might do." "I'll file the eviction notice today. And Jerome, I suggest you file for emergency custody, given Clara's recent behavior." As we left the office, my phone buzzed with messages. The video had now been shared by several elder advocacy groups. A local news station wanted to interview me. 3 attorneys had offered pro bono services. But the message that stopped me cold was from Clara. "Mama, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand." Jerome saw it too. "Don't respond. Anything you say, she'll try to use against you." That evening, Terrence arrived. My baby boy, now 45 with gray in his beard, hugged me like he'd never let go. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I should have been here. I knew Clara was getting weird about money, but I never thought she'd go this far." We sat in Marcus's living room, Terrence, Jerome, and I, planning our next moves. Terrence revealed that Clara had been calling him for months, trying to get him to agree that I needed to be in a home. "She kept saying you were showing signs of dementia, that you were forgetting things. I told her you sounded fine every time we talked, but she insisted I didn't see what she saw daily." "What else did she say?" Jerome asked. "She wanted me to sign something saying I agreed you weren't competent. Said if both your children agreed, it would be easier. I told her she was crazy and threatened to come up there if she didn't stop." "That's probably why she moved so fast," Jerome said. "She knew you wouldn't support her." My phone rang. It was Mrs. Washington. "Loretta, honey, you need to know what's happening at your house. Clara's got people over there measuring rooms and talking about renovations. And the kids? I can hear them crying from my yard. My heart broke for my grandbabies. Are they okay? Physically, yes, but Destiny keeps asking for you and Jerome. Clara told them you both abandoned them. Jerome's face darkened. That's it. I'm filing for emergency custody tonight. But before anyone could move, my phone rang again. This time it was Clara, and she was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What did you do? My boss just called and said I'm suspended pending investigation. Someone sent them that video and now they're saying I'm a liability to the company's reputation. Clara, I didn't... And Child Protective Services just left. Someone called them. They're talking about taking my kids. Baby, please calm down. Don't you baby me. You've ruined my life. All because you're too proud to admit you're old. The line went dead. Jerome immediately called his lawyer while Terrence held me as I cried. How had it come to this? How had my daughter become someone who could be so cruel? An hour later, there was a knock at the door. We all froze, wondering if Clara had found us. But when Jerome looked through the peephole, his face changed. It's the police, he said quietly. And they have the kids with them. Jerome opened the door to reveal 2 officers and a CPS worker with Destiny and Jalen. Both children had tear-stained faces and were clutching small backpacks. Are you Jerome Matthews? The female officer asked. Yes, ma'am. We need to speak with you and Loretta Thompson. May we come in? The CPS worker, a young black woman named Kendra Williams, explained the situation. We received multiple calls about the children's welfare. When we arrived at the residence, we found Ms. Clara Matthews in an agitated state. She became verbally aggressive toward our worker and threatened to harm herself if anyone tried to take her children. Destiny broke free and ran to me. Grandma, Mama said you didn't love us anymore. I held her tight, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Jalen went straight to Jerome, wrapping his arms around his father's waist. We need a safe place for the children tonight while we assess the situation, Kendra continued. Mr. Matthews, you're listed as the father. Are you willing to take temporary custody? Absolutely, Jerome said without hesitation. And you must be the grandmother from the video. Kendra turned to me with sympathetic eyes. I want you to know that video is being used in training now. What your daughter did was textbook financial elder abuse. After the officers left and we got the kids settled with hot chocolate and cookies, Kendra sat with us at the kitchen table. I need to be honest with you all. Ms. Matthews is in crisis. She's making threats, acting erratically. We're recommending a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation. Is she going to be okay? I asked, because despite everything, she was still my child. That depends on her, but right now my concern is these children. They've witnessed behavior that's traumatizing them. Terrence spoke up. What do we need to do to keep them safe? Mr. Matthews will need to file for emergency custody. Given the circumstances and the documentation of Ms. Matthews' recent behavior, I don't think a judge will have trouble granting it, at least temporarily. That night, I slept with Destiny curled up beside me, her little hand gripping mine even in sleep. In the other room, I could hear Jerome and Terrence talking quietly, planning the next steps. Jalen had fallen asleep on the couch between them, exhausted from crying. Friday morning brought more chaos. The local news ran a story about elder abuse in Atlanta's West End. They'd interviewed Mrs. Washington and other neighbors, all of whom corroborated the story. The video had now been viewed over 1 million times. But the real shock came when Yolanda called. Loretta, turn on Channel 5. Clara's giving an interview. I turned on the TV to see my daughter, makeup perfect, sitting in my living room, talking to a reporter. This is all a misunderstanding, Clara was saying with practiced tears. My mother has been showing signs of dementia. I was trying to help her, but she became combative. I had to make the difficult decision to get her professional help. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Shanice Robertson, wasn't buying it. But witnesses say you threw her belongings on the lawn and locked her out. That's not what happened. She chose to leave because she didn't want to admit she needed help. And your husband leaving you? He's been manipulated by my mother. She's very good at playing the victim. Jerome, watching beside me, pulled out his phone. That's defamation. She's about to learn a hard lesson. Within the hour, Shanice Robertson had received the recordings Jerome had made, the eviction notice Mr. Goldstein had filed, and statements from neighbors. By noon, there was a follow-up segment showing Clara's lies being exposed in real time. The phone rang. It was Mr. Goldstein. Loretta, the locks on your house have been changed by Clara. We're going to need a police escort to get you back in. Can you be there at 3 o'clock? At 3 p.m., I stood in front of my house with Jerome, Terrence, Mr. Goldstein, 2 police officers, and what seemed like the entire neighborhood. News cameras were there too, having gotten wind of what was happening. Clara opened the door, and when she saw the crowd, her confident facade cracked. You can't do this. Mr. Goldstein stepped forward. Ms. Matthews, this is an official eviction notice. You have violated the terms of your residency agreement by changing the locks on the property owner's home. You have 24 hours to vacate. This is my house, Clara screamed, but there was desperation in her voice now. No, it's not. Mr. Goldstein handed her a stack of papers. This is the deed, the trust documents, and a court order requiring you to return all keys and access immediately. Mama, please. Clara turned to me. And for a moment, I saw my daughter again, not the stranger she'd become. Don't do this. Where will I go? You should have thought about that before you threw me out with 2 suitcases, I said quietly. You could have talked to me, worked with me, but you chose lies and manipulation. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes, Clara, and now you have to face the consequences. The officers stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to allow Ms. Thompson to enter her home. Clara's shoulders slumped. She handed over a set of keys and walked past me without another word. I watched her get into her car and drive away, and I felt a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and something that might have been grief for the relationship we'd lost. Walking back into my house felt surreal. Clara had already started making changes. New paint in the living room, my furniture moved around, some of my pictures taken down. But it was still home. Mrs. Washington brought over a casserole. Mr. Franklin helped Jerome move our things back in. Sister Marjorie arrived with half the church choir, and soon my house was filled with music and laughter and love. Destiny and Jalen ran through the rooms, happy to be back in their grandmother's house. Can we stay here forever, Grandma? Destiny asked. As long as you need to, baby. The custody hearing was set for the following Wednesday. Jerome's lawyer, a fierce woman named Simone Davis, had built an airtight case. But on Tuesday evening, Clara's lawyer called requesting a meeting. We met at a neutral location, a conference room at a local community center. Clara looked terrible. Her hair wasn't done, her clothes were wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. Her lawyer, an older white man named Mr. Peterson, spoke first. My client wants to propose an agreement. I'm listening, Jerome said coldly. Clara's voice was small. I know I messed up. I know I hurt everyone. The psych evaluation. They diagnosed me with anxiety and depression. They said I've been having some kind of breakdown. That doesn't excuse what you did, Terrence said. I know it doesn't. Clara looked at me for the first time. Mama, I don't even know how to begin to apologize. What I did was unforgivable. Yes, it was, I said simply. I'm proposing that Jerome gets primary custody, Mr. Peterson continued. Clara will voluntarily enter a treatment program. She'll have supervised visitation with the children. Supervised by you, Mrs. Thompson, if you're willing. And the house? Mr. Goldstein asked. Clara relinquishes any and all claims to the property, now and in the future. She'll sign whatever documents necessary to make that crystal clear. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She'd lost weight. Her hands were shaking. Whatever had been driving her to such desperate actions had consumed her from the inside out. "Why?" I asked her. "Why did you do this to me?" Clara started crying, real tears this time. "Because I was scared. Scared we'd never get ahead. Scared of ending up like Daddy, working until the day he died with nothing to show for it. I convinced myself that I was entitled to that house, that I'd earned it by being your daughter. And then it became an obsession. Every time I looked at that house, all I could see was dollar signs. Your father worked until the day he died because he loved what he did," I said. "And he had everything to show for it. A family that loved him, a home full of memories, respect in his community. I know that now, but I couldn't see it then." Clara wiped her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I want to get help so I can at least be a better mother to my kids." Jerome spoke up. "What about us? Our marriage?" Clara shook her head. "I think we both know that's over. I broke something that can't be fixed. You did the right thing, choosing to protect my mother and our children. I should have been doing the same thing." The agreement was signed. Clara would enter a 30-day inpatient treatment program, followed by outpatient therapy. Jerome would have primary custody with my support. Clara would have supervised visits, eventually working toward unsupervised time if she completed treatment and remained stable. As we left the community center, Clara stopped me. "Mama?" I turned back. "I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you didn't let me do this to you." I nodded, not quite ready to offer more than that. The custody hearing on Wednesday was a formality. The judge, a black woman in her 50s named Judge Anderson, reviewed the agreement and approved it. But she had some words for Clara. "Ms. Matthews, what you did to your mother was unconscionable. Elder abuse is a serious crime, and you're fortunate that your mother has chosen not to press charges. You're being given an opportunity to get help and rebuild your relationship with your children. I suggest you take it seriously." "Yes, Your Honor," Clara whispered. "And Mrs. Thompson," the judge turned to me, "I want to commend you for your strength. Too many elders suffer in silence when their own children abuse them. By standing up for yourself, you may have inspired others to do the same." After the hearing, Yolanda and the church ladies threw a welcome home party at my house. They deep-cleaned everything, put my furniture back where it belonged, and hung my pictures back up. Deacon Harris made a toast. "To Sister Loretta, a woman who taught us all that age ain't nothing but a number, and you're never too old to fight for what's right." Everyone cheered. I looked around at my community, these people who had rallied around me, supported me, protected me. I thought about Jerome, who had sacrificed his marriage to stand up for what was right. I thought about my grandbabies, asleep upstairs in their beds, safe and loved. And I thought about Clara, beginning her journey toward healing. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet. That would take time, maybe years. But I could hope that she'd find her way back to the person I'd raised her to be. A month later, things had settled into a new normal. Jerome and the kids officially lived with me. We'd turned Earl's old office into a bedroom for Jerome, and the kids had their own rooms. Jerome insisted on paying rent and utilities, and we'd worked out a system that felt fair to both of us. I'd started attending a support group for victims of elder abuse. Hearing other people's stories made me realize how common this was, and how lucky I was to have caught it early and had people to help me fight back. Clara completed her inpatient treatment and was doing well in outpatient therapy. Her visits with the kids were going smoothly, supervised by me in my living room. We didn't talk much beyond what was necessary, but the hostility was gone. She was taking her medications, seeing her therapist twice a week, and working part-time at a bookstore. One Saturday, 6 weeks after everything had happened, Clara arrived for her visit with the kids looking nervous. "Mama, could we talk? Just for a minute?" We sat on the porch while the kids played in the backyard with Jerome. "My therapist has been helping me understand what happened," Clara began. "She says I had a kind of moral injury. I grew up watching you and Daddy struggle financially, even though you always provided for us. I developed this deep fear of being poor, of struggling like you did, and it twisted into resentment. We were never poor, I said. We had everything we needed. I know that now, but I couldn't see it. All I could see was what we didn't have compared to other people. And when I saw how much the house was worth, it became the symbol of everything I thought I deserved. Life doesn't owe you anything, Clara. You have to work for what you get. I'm learning that. She paused. I'm also learning that some things are more valuable than money. I lost my husband because of my greed. I nearly lost my children. I did lose my relationship with you, at least the one we had. That relationship was built on me giving and you taking, I said honestly. If we're going to have any relationship going forward, it has to be different. I know, and I'm willing to do the work, if you are. I looked at my daughter, thinner, humbler, broken down, and maybe being rebuilt into something better. I'm willing to try. But Clara, if you ever come at me like that again, I won't. I swear to you, Mama, I won't. 3 months later, Jerome's divorce from Clara was finalized. It was sad but necessary. He'd met someone, a teacher at Destiny's school named Anita. They were taking it slow, but I could see the happiness returning to his eyes. Clara had moved into a small apartment and was working her way back to full-time employment. She'd apologized publicly on social media, which took courage. Many people were harsh, but some commended her for taking accountability. As for me, I was thriving. I'd started a blog about elder abuse with help from Anthony, my nephew. It had taken off, with thousands of followers sharing their stories. I'd been invited to speak at conferences, to train social workers, to help develop policy. The video that had exposed Clara's cruelty had led to real change. Our state legislature passed new protections for elders, making financial abuse easier to prosecute. Several people had reached out to say that seeing my story had given them the courage to stand up to their own abusive family members. 1 year after Clara threw me out of my own house, I stood in that same house, but everything was different. It was Thanksgiving, and my dining room table was full. Terrence had flown in from Houston with his family. Jerome was there with Anita and her son. Destiny and Jalen were helping me set the table. And Clara was there too, in a limited way. She'd stopped by earlier to drop off a sweet potato pie she'd made from her grandmother's recipe, the one I'd taught her all those years ago. She couldn't stay for dinner. That was still too much. But the pie sitting on my counter felt like a small step toward something that might one day be forgiveness. "Grandma," Destiny said as we gathered around the table, "will you say grace?" I looked around at the faces of my family, those related by blood and those related by choice. I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything, and how fighting back had led to this moment. "Dear Lord," I began, "thank you for this food, this family, and the strength you gave me when I needed it most. Thank you for teaching me that I'm never too old to stand up for myself, never too old to start over, and never too old to hope for better days. Thank you for bringing people into my life who saw my worth when others couldn't. And thank you for every trial, because it showed me how strong I really am. Amen." "Amen," everyone echoed. As we ate and laughed and told stories, I caught Jerome's eye. He smiled and raised his glass to me in a silent toast. That man had walked away from his marriage to stand up for what was right, and I would never forget it. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Thank you for letting me be part of today, even in a small way. I'm grateful." I texted back, "Keep doing the work. Keep being better. That's all I ask." Because that's what this whole ordeal had taught me. People can change, but only if they want to. Clara had a long road ahead of her, and I didn't know if we'd ever get back what we'd lost. But I knew who I was now. I was Loretta Thompson, 73 years old, owner of my own home, protector of my grandchildren, and a woman who refused to be a victim. I was too old to live here? Please, I was just getting started. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, Please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.